We are on air. Hello, world. This is Tommy Butler and John Fields, your friendly neighborhood DFW.pm Mongers leadership. Now, the live feed that you're looking at now is going to be different than we've done in the past. This is not a presentation. Tonight is a brainstorming session, and so we have folks logged into IRC. We have folks communicating with us via our non-commercial mailing list. We have people on the phone. We have and we have people online in the Hangout here. So anybody, we're encouraging participation. And if we don't hear from you, then we're just going to soldier on with our brainstorming session. Right now we have 2 people present on the premises. And that might grow, might not, but we often enjoy larger participation online than we enjoy here in our locality. Tonight we're going to be talking about One Perl per Child, which is a brainchild of our own that we have come up with, an idea. And that idea is centered around bringing Perl, specifically Perl, to the next generation of programmers. Now, where the genesis of this idea came from my own kids. I have 4, which is kind of awesome, and 2 of which are participating in a digital citizenship program at their school. This digital citizenship program entitles them to the lease of 1 Chromebook, and that Chromebook allows them to seeing stuff in IRC. I'm going to go ahead and close this particular channel. Their Chromebook program at their school allows them to do things like play video games that teach them how to spell words. Now, for me, as somebody who has benefited greatly from programming and coding, and I've seen this transform lives because people with these skills are able to do significantly better in their careers and as providers for families and in terms of opportunities that they have in their own lives. I want my kids to have that as the next generation, and not just my kids, but all kids. The One Laptop per Child program probably is well known. What do you think, John? Definitely well known. The idea behind One Laptop per Child was to make sure that kids had access to computing resources, and that it was a human right that these kids should be equipped with the things that they needed in order to succeed in a digital world, or a world that's increasingly digital. In a similar note, similarly, here we are, not in the hardware world, but the software world. And kids who have access to hardware can greatly benefit from programs that teach them to program, but those programs don't really exist today. If they do, they're kind of difficult to find. And I think that we can help fill that need. We think that we can help fill that need. Our group here, my partner John Fields, our guys John Dexter, and other folks, we feel like we can bring benefit to young children by providing a curriculum that we're going to create. Now, this involves more than just producing a free program or curriculum under the Perl license, which is basically an MIT license that you can take it and do whatever you want with it. It is absolutely free. There are companies out there who do teach people Perl and charge money for it, and we encourage those companies and individuals to pick up our curriculum and support it commercially. But our project right here is not a for-profit project. This is going to be a free as in Linux, free as in the Linux kernel, free as in free. project. This involves a couple very important components. I would say, the first and most obvious part is the community coming together to create the curriculum. I'm going to extend, and I am extending, the invitation worldwide for people who love Perl and love programming and love coding to contribute to this project. I'm extending that invitation. We extend that invitation, and we are moving forward with that first step to get this created. And once it's created, and even while it's being created, we're going to have to employ the second component, which is getting this into the hands of the educational apparatus of the places where it's going to be used. We'd like to see it used in public schools, like the schools that my kids go to, so that they can get classroom time learning these skills. That means we need to get inroads to the educators themselves. This also means that we need to make sure that we're compliant with requirements imposed on curriculum providers by local and international governments, so that there aren't any stumbling blocks there, and so that the teachers are able to use these things. Also in businesses, we want businesses to be able to use these things to train their people as well. But this specifically is geared towards children and the teaching and the forwarding of their lives. So I'm going to turn now to IRC. Let's see if there's any questions that have been posted. We have some lurkers. We have some folks who have joined the mailing list. Some folks who are watching the feed. Looks like we just got a message on Google Plus as well. Let's go ahead and accept that. Ron Georgia from Wells Fargo is connecting with us. So Ron, let me see if I can pull you in. Please bear with me. The Google Hangouts app, which does facilitate a lot of awesome collaboration, still is a little bit clunky, despite a few years under its belt. It's difficult to pull people into these Hangouts. So while I tried to pull in our friend Ron Georgia, please bear with me. Now, full disclosure up front, my friends, is that this is not a presentation. Like I said, we're not here presenting. Behind me, that's a whiteboard. We're going to be brainstorming, and I'm hoping that we'll get some questions here in the group chat as well, and some ideas. We really love it when Bruce Gray, our resident Perl 6 guy, starts posting links and all kinds of valuable information. Please, if you've got this information, forward it on to other people. This is something that is a worthy cause, and I think is deserving of our attention. As Perl programmers and developers, I think we owe it to the creators of Perl to make sure that the next generation is able to get their hands on it. The creators of Perl, mainly Larry Wall and core Perl maintainers and Pumpkins, these guys have done this all on a, what would you say, no budget or shoestring budget, Joan? I mean, these people have volunteered their time and their lives in order to make these things happen for other people. Similarly, that's what we're doing. We're going to be doing the same and asking other people to come together and do that. Take some time out of your life to help us with this project. We're all very busy, but 5 minutes a week could make a huge difference in the life of someone down the road who could use Perl to do incredible things. We do not know. We do not know what the next generation will create, but we know that we can give them the tools to do it, the tools that we know and love. going to check out IRC again. Okay. We'll move on to kind of brainstorming. And while this is being saved as a movie to our YouTube channel, it's not going to have stellar entertainment value where you can go back for posterity and look at that. It's going to be, like I said, we're brainstorming, so it might not be so fun to follow along tomorrow. Question from SJN on IRC. Have you guys looked at perltraining.co.au's training material? It's licensed with an open publications license, perltraining.com.au/notes.html. SJN, we have not. But we will. That is... The hyphen? What hyphen?
I put in perltraining.co.au and it said web page unreadable. So it's not resolved.
It's okay. The second message came through with the com. I'm going to paste that in the group chat here.
Is that targeted to?
Is that targeted to children and education? Is the question here from one of our local folks. We have also had someone reached out to us from as far away as London. And this individual is running a online school and has offered to help us out in our endeavor. We don't exactly know at this point, so early in the process, exactly the resources that we're going to need yet, or how to disseminate this to the world. But an online mechanism would really help us. John, I'd like it if you could take the pilot seat over here and talk about what you said earlier regarding getting this into the hands of actual educators. If you'll recall that you had opined and provided some feedback about that as well. Would you mind? Or let me switch video feeds to you. If you could turn on your video.
And turn off your sound.
I will turn off my sound. All right, go for it, John. Well.
To make it stop. Okay, so we're all good? Hopefully you can hear me because I can see the little green thing going ding-a-ding-a-ding. All right.
I can hear you,
what was my point there? My point was that we need to be able to package up whatever we do in a very convenient format, right? School teachers, since we're aiming these at children, and that's probably where we'll get the most bang for the buck. They've got to have it handed to them on a silver platter, basically, to make it work for them, right? They're not programmers. They are not going to be able to answer, the questions. So we can't obviously go too deep. Any lesson we're trying to teach needs to be rather thorough and complete. And that once you have the curriculum, once you have something that is of value and that teachers can, if they're in Australia or England or wherever, download it and go, right, run it. That they will have to have, like the, I forget what it's called now, because the pressure's on, but it's a teacher's guide. That's the other half of the, of the lesson, so that she can prompt, if there's a logic problem that the kids have to solve, she needs to have the answer. And if she can understand, if she can understand the problem space herself, great, but we can't expect that, right? We can't expect them to be computer trainers. So that's an issue, right, that we have to overcome in designing the curriculum. Actually, that's like 3 issues, but making it available, making it internationalizable, right? So England and Australia and U.S. all primarily English-speaking countries, but if we mandate that they have to understand English to do Perl, then right? So there's that, and then
Can I interject?
please do.
Can you mute?
Tommy's gonna go.
Okay, I just wanted to respond to what John Field said. Mandating that this be for English-speaking children only. No, we're not going to pigeonhole ourselves there. This curriculum will be presented in the form that it is created. Since we speak English here and we're its creators, it'll probably be in English first. But the community can help translate this. Folks out there who want to help translate this into Hebrew, Arabic, French, let's see, Spanish, obviously. That Spanish is huge here where we live. But folks who want to do that will also be contributing. You might not have Perl coding skills, but if you have multilingual skills, and you're able to speak more than one tongue and translate or provide that would be a humongous contribution to make as well. I'm going to turn it back over to John at this point.
Good. Okay. So that was my basic thrust was that we have to make it accessible to the teachers, in addition to, or whoever's going to lead, the lesson or prompt it. Even if it's going to be computer-based training, right? There's still, that's a good question. Could it be totally self-paced, no teacher interaction at all? Can we provide 100% of the motivation and the challenge, through a computer screen, right? So there's that. I think we're going to need to really pull in, artists and designers and things to make it attractive. So anyway, apart from and above from, teaching basic computer science, you got all these things that make interactive lessons compelling, right? So while we definitely need to start on the curriculum, we need to try to find people that can help us wrap the package up, with a bow. Oh, I need to. That was my point.
Yeah. Okay. John and I also discussed earlier before the meeting how this might be done, because creating a little redistributable, something that's capable of being deployed in a classroom or on a computer, this is going to run into a lot of challenges that I really don't want to address. I don't want to have to create something that supports a Macintosh or a PC or Linux. I don't want to have to create something that supports mobile device access. I don't want to have to worry about that. So how do we get around that? And John tossed this out. How about in a web session where we have an interactive Perl interpreter out of a web page? And in that Perl interpreter, maybe while a person's going through the programming exercises, that right there, off to either on the side or right there in line, they're able to see feedback for what they've done. Compilation errors should be explained, in terms of, this code didn't compile because of no such file, or, could not find this file or directory, no such file or directory. A kid needs to be able to understand what that means and how to troubleshoot that. A web session, without going off too far in the weeds, sorry, a web session would allow these people to interact with the Perl interpreter without having it installed on their computer. And while that does solve the portability problems, it presents another. That means that this person has to be connected. So we have another challenge there. Give us feedback about what you think there, about redistributables and about web sessions. I know we have things like HTML5 browser cache technology available to us, John, where we see people like Amazon who have created read.amazon.com, which is an online ebook reader. And if you're not connected, doesn't matter, because what you do is you log in when you're connected. It downloads the book that you're going to read, and then you can pop open your computer and it's in the cache. By virtue of HTML5 caching, you can flip through all the pages in Game of Thrones. All of them, every single one of those books can be cached. There's apparently ample room. So how could that be leveraged? Is another question. Could we make a disconnected, connected experience? Could we cut the cord to a web-based interpreter? And then this kind of steers my thinking towards Pinto, John. Pinto is an effort that's out there on GitHub, and they talked about it at YAPC Austin a little while back, a couple years back or so. Pinto will let you run Perl on top of JavaScript. So you can feed Perl to JavaScript, and the JavaScript engine will parse and execute it. But it's still it's not a full implementation, and there are bugs. I stopped following it on GitHub because there's still quite a bit of activity, and I admittedly didn't have time to watch all the email and bug reports. But I would need to follow up and to see if that's still active. But I mean, here's another option. Could we create a Perl interpreter running on top of JavaScript? And if we can, we've solved that problem. All somebody needs to do is open up their web browser. They don't need to be connected. They can run Perl right there in a web page that's already downloaded, cached. That would work. We've got some comments coming in on IRC. Let me look at this. IRC member says, a few years ago, I looked at P2PU, as in other words, P, letter P, 2, the number 2, P, again, and the letter U.org, P2PU.org, and they did some cool work delivering course material online. When I think about this online idea, I think about Learn Ruby. Have you ever seen learnruby.org, I think, John? I think is it?
Yeah.
They embed a Ruby interpreter right there in an interactive HTML setting. They've been doing this for a while. I think that if we were going to do this in a connected manner that gave these kids access to an actual Perl interpreter via pass-through to a server backend, we could probably mitigate security risks by running that in a Docker process.
I don't think it's Pinto.
It's Pinto.
Pinto, a custom CPAN in a box.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 Pintos.
Then I could be wrong. I was pretty confident it was Pinto, but it's Perl and JavaScript, and it's on GitHub. I really thought it was Pinto, but I apologize. I apologize if I misnamed that project and provided false information. Please forgive me. But if we were to go with an online mechanism, I would want to do 2 things, and feedback is solicited on these ideas. First of all, I would want to have some kind of protection mechanism so that people can't just hit the website with mass attacks, which people will try to do. They'll try to find bugs in the Perl interpreter and use those to do something to the back-end server, since we're actually executing a Perl interpreter process. But if we cage that inside of a Docker, Docker is one process, right? So we spin up a Perl interpreter inside a Docker process, and it just has access to a few files on its UnionFS file system. That would be a lot safer, and then we could destroy those as soon as they're done. But some kind of protection mechanism on the front end might involve a sign-up, and that could be bad. That could be good, and that could be bad. A sign-up where somebody creates an account and provides an email address, and by virtue of that, they log in with their email address and username or password. They have to authenticate first. So that way we wouldn't be able to, it wouldn't be like a completely open thing where folks can just come to the website and start hitting it with mass amounts of Perl code. And because we want to be multinational, there are some folks who design network firewalls and say, okay, block all of country X, block all of country Y. We know a lot of attacks come out of that country, or IP blocks in that country. We can't do that if we're going to make this internationally available. We might be able to blacklist a few different IP blocks or ranges, but if we're going to be international, we can't say, oh, we're just going to block that country, because the kids in that country wouldn't be able to get it. So sounds like we're talking about a lot of problems that we have to solve, which is good. Even if we don't have solutions right now, we need to be able to identify challenge factors. Now, the online session thing is fun as a geek for me to think about. How would I implement that, and how would it look, and could I do color coding right there in the browser with syntax highlighting and stuff? But I don't want to go off in that direction too far, because while it is fun to geek out on that, that's not going to help us move forward at this point in time. That would be a subtask. Right now, from 30,000 feet, I'm thinking we need to discuss a little bit more about how to get this into the hands of teachers and through any kind of barriers in the education system. One thing that I have pondered upon is I've thought in my mind, because that's where thoughts go, about successful open source deployments in the public sector, and where have we seen these in the last decade? Where have we seen successful open source deployments in the public sector? And I would say that Germany is a leader on that front. Germany has done some good work there. Even China and some other countries are using this in the public sector as well, albeit for other reasons. But open source has been deployed. We've got Linux running in local governments over in townships and provinces. I'm not sure what these smaller sections of Germany are called. Here we are the United States, and we have states. I'm not sure what you guys have in Germany. But the folks in Germany have had a lot of success in comparison to what we have had here in the United States, where there's a lot of proprietary lock-in. And I would like to segue for a moment as to why that has happened in America. Having seen firsthand in the educational system, higher education, when I was attending college, university, I went to school and I saw that vendors of software and hardware would come to the school. They would come to the school with their wares, and they would donate or provide at a deep discount these technologies. And so teachers and schools then had they had access to all of, well, in my case, all of Microsoft's products. They taught us mathematics, they taught us physics and such, but after core courses were completed, the curriculum was to go learn Microsoft Access, Microsoft Office products. After that, we started learning about Microsoft servers, Microsoft Server operating systems and how to administer Active Directory. After that, we started learning about MS SQL and about Microsoft's web server and other such software. And the reason why is because Microsoft provided all of these things for free or at a great discount to the school. And they also did so with corporate backing for support, so that if you had a problem and you were at the school, you could call them up and you could get help. At that point, I began to see why governments and schools here in the United States are so locked in to vendors, is because, you know, there's a little bit of bait and switch there. You can go to schools where they've developed or deployed huge Apple network, you know, a huge Apple deployment for these kids. At my children's school, they've deployed Chromebooks, and it's a Google ecosphere. When the kids log into their Chromebooks, when when my daughter and son, they log into their Chromebooks, it's locked into Google's Chrome browser. They can only send email within their school's domain back and forth to teachers. The communication is visible to parents who want to see it. But these are examples of vendor lock-in. And that's how they're able to get a foothold in America.
Huh.
What are your thoughts on that, John?
Uh,
I'm going to mute.
all right, we're good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Done. So I was poking around trying to find the JavaScript thing, and yeah, it must have sunk back into the unconsciousness of the web.
I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, because Pinto definitely is a thing, and if I tried to exclude it, the CPAN part, it was like, what? So I don't know. But I kind of remember that. So what what I was having a little balloon light bulb moment was the alternative to having a hosted thing and needing connectivity is to host the web page local to the kids, right? So you take a Raspberry Pi or a Banana Pi and Perlito.
Perlito, that's why it sounded like Pinto. It's called Perlito.
Cool.
I'm going to post the link I'm going to put this link in IRC and in the group chat.
So we can still use Perlito, but if we put the server as an image for a Raspberry Pi, and the teacher who is probably kind of wanting to do something computery to start, you know, it's all cool and everything to make a Raspberry Pi thing, that they could have the entire, you know, curriculum that they could download in an image and run it, like I said, on a Raspberry Pi, and then do it that way, right? So there would still be something that they got to buy, but they could take it home with them, you know.
So at this point, we're thinking about hardware?
No. Yes. Right. The thing about open source is that it's not limited. It's not packaged in such a way that it only runs on the Asus laptop that you purchased it with, right? So if we have, say, a Mojolicious backend and, you know, the website, and then we got Perlito, just so anybody who has connectivity can go hit it, or we have a Perlito thing with no Perl underneath it whatsoever that they can download as a zip file, take it to school, put it somewhere. Because like Chromebooks, right? How are you going to run this on a Chromebook? inside of a browser, a web page that's served from some other box. So if you have one Raspberry Pi for the school, it could even throw up its own access point. If it's locked down, that's a little bit of a problem, obviously.
This would
But then they have
would mean
connectivity.
that the government, the FCC, doesn't shut down open hardware.
Oh, sure. I don't think that will actually happen. So, because that's too commercially disruptive. That's my personal thing. Because like I'm following that, right? Because of the home front router project.
Yeah.
That's exactly, it's 100% what that is. So, anyway.
Which might be helpful here. I mean, pooling resources, ideas, projects, technologies, bringing all of this together in a fabric of might comprise our solution.
Yeah.
I mean, this would give being able to use the homefront router technology. We can talk more about that. The homefront router might give us the opportunity, or supporting company, or support company, somebody who's supporting the curriculum commercially, give them the opportunity to log in and help out.
But that's an open source project, so there's no money in
That's an open source project, but the technology is free.
Yeah.
So, somebody can use that. Somebody could use that if we make it easy. If we make it easy to get to an implementation or a deployment inside a school, if we make it easy for remote administrators to get in there and support it, that's going to be an argument for, that's going to be a pro.
Right.
Not a con. That's going to be a pro for this. If we say, well, we've also integrated support, remote support capabilities into this because we're using hooks into the homefront router technology. And,
Well, I think what you could glean from the router project is how to have a hardware agnostic distribution that runs on ARM. That could run on a Raspberry Pi or a Banana Pi or any of the other Raspberry Pi clones that's ARM based.
type in up a comment for that. How would you summarize that? Open hardware.
Lowest common denominator, hardware platform.
And what will we do with that?
That
Put a Perl interpreter on there, and how would we expose it?
through a web page.
So we would put one of these in a classroom?
Yep. The teacher would bring it to the classroom is what I would expect.
So, an appliance. I mean, we're going further away from Perl, the further towards hardware. We're leaving the software realm.
So, barrier to entry, right? Because we've talked about two criteria. One is having connectivity, and the other is enabling it without connectivity, right? So if you have connectivity and we have a web server, publicly facing on the internet that any number of hundreds of thousands of whatever of children can log into at the same time, there is that.
So you're thinking maybe that the Banana Pi could be used as an access point ad hoc, and kids could connect their laptops to it?
Yep.
And then they're on that private network?
Yep.
They can just in their browser go to OPPC?
Yep. And
type in OPPC, then the web page gets served up. Could that Banana Pi is that hardware robust enough to support like 50 kids?
So the Banana Pi that we're using for the Homefront Router project, it is dual core, 1 gigahertz, and it's got 1 gig of RAM, and we're using a Debian-based distro. So for development purposes, you can just go straight out to the Debian ARM repos and pull the packages down straight from them. So it's like no custom weird embedded anything, and it comes with Perl 5.2.0 on it out of the box.
520. Wow, that's pretty modern.
I'm just saying.
I
And
mean, sorry if you guys are out there in Perl 523. Perl 520 is
Yeah.
a heck of a lot better than you're getting on a Red Hat install out of the box.
Right. So, I mean, but you could run Perl Brew, you could do whatever you want. We're planning on using Mojo for the single page architecture, service front end for the thing. So, yeah, could it handle kids, like a whole classroom full of kids? Now, depends upon how heavy the web app is, right? What kind of interactivity and back and forth is going on. But yeah, I bet it could. And I'm defining a classroom as like 30 kids. But if you think about it, 30 laptops sitting at all at the same time, that's California, that's Texas. That's not, most likely Ecuador, right? So, but it would do it nonetheless. And we wouldn't be purchasing the hardware, right? We would be making a distribution. They could download. They have a memory card. They put it on the memory card. They put it in the Raspberry Pi, which could be a $30 or a $60, thing. So, as a project, us spreading the cost out a little bit, that's certainly beneficial to us, and it may speed the time to market for them. But the thing to me is, at that point, the exact same code that would be running on our big server could be running on the local Pi, right? So that development effort would go two places at once.
I think, and I just found my microphone, but I think that if we were able to do both in tandem, where we had a readily available web service out there, OPPC.org. Don't register it. Jerkhead, don't do it. We haven't tested it yet. Somebody register that really quick in the Perl community. Somebody get that, please, for us.
Hold on, look at Google. I love to register on Google.
A simultaneous deployment of our own centralized service, which could be supported via donations, just like Pair support CPAN, Liquid Web support CPAN. We could be deploying these, shall we call them appliances? I mean, we have folks here in our group, we have folks around the world that don't just speak Perl, because you don't. You do more than one thing. I use Perl at work to do automating things. I do Perl at home for fun and profit. I mean, you guys speak more than one language. Out there, you guys in the world have other talents that you can contribute. Creating an appliance that somebody can take into a classroom, fire up an ad hoc access point, and let all the kids connect to via what the school already has, their hardware. They would have a self-contained, very much more secure, much more attack-proof deployment of OPPC. If we could have a deployment in a classroom on a private little network, ad hoc access point that provides no routing outside to the outside of the world, but just routes all requests to a Mojo web service, Mojo, Dancer, whatever web service running on the Banana Pi. And My only concern is I don't know how robust that hardware is and if it can handle 50 connections.
Don't know what it's doing, but yeah.
The Perl interpreter is pretty lightweight. And I think if we were using Mojo on top of something really fast, a web service that's doing reverse proxying that's really, really juicy fast. What do you think? Like Nginx, not Apache. Apache's too heavy.
I would just use.
You would just use Mojo. You'd use Hypnoto,
Yeah.
the built-in web server.
Yeah. Because there's not a lot of other stuff you got to do.
We would, it'd have to be set up to listen on port 80 and such.
But yeah,
It's completely doable.
Right.
But is the hardware robust enough?
When you say robust, you mean just cycles?
I mean, can 50 kids connect to it and run a session without it bogging down?
Yes. Now,
Yes.
are you doing Perl compiling 50 threads all at the same time?
And we got incoming over here. Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Oh, I am. I was trying to register the thing, and I've exceeded my who is request apparently.
What? Who is? It's command line component.
I know. I can see it's right here. This who is limit exceeded.
What is that for our IP?
It's from Linode apparently, because that's too SSH into. And I have no idea where I was going when I was trying to make it. So, two cores at 1 gigahertz each with 1 gig of DFW RAM. Could it do 50 simultaneous threads of Perl interpretation? That would be a little slow, probably.
Perl interpreter, people say it's going to be bad. I mean, Perl interpreter is not that heavy.
As long as you've got the RAM.
In terms of applications that could have been deployed on the nearby.
Yeah,
A Docker process, you do Docker.
you can actually do Docker.
Because I'd like to do one process, a Docker process for each connection. That's what I would like to see. So that you can't have kids or grown-ups hacking around.
Now, when you say
They get to the Docker container. If they get into the Docker container and they gain access to the file system, well, who cares? Perl's supposed to provide IO access to file systems.
Sure.
Open file, write file, read file.
But if they break in and do things that they shouldn't,
They're still right there, only in the container.
Now, I will stop you and say
that a standard Raspberry Pi, originally was 256 and then it was 512, right? So this is 1 gig of RAM. And the clock speeds are constantly going up. So
If you guys can hear John when he's talking, because I've got my mic on, if you guys can't hear John, would you please raise your hand? Indicate.
yeah, I've got my mic on here.
Okay.
So like any web server, you're talking traffic and Erlang's, right? Which is, if you've got 50 kids, you're really servicing 10 of them at any given time, right?
Yeah.
There's that. But it depends on how we architect the solution, where they submit something and then it goes off and it builds it with the dash D or whatever, right? That, and then returns, whatever the feedback mechanism is to keep the kids happy, right? They type 3 characters, it goes off and does it, whatever, right? You can keep those memory pools spun up. Now, there's a caveat, right? So the Banana Pi, which is what I'm working with, yes, they are actually running OpenWRT in a Docker container on kernel 4.2. Right? So they're pushing it. Now, does the ARM have special virtualization in the hardware? I don't actually know. I haven't investigated that.
There's an arm class around the corner.
But the guy at the company is called Sinowood, they're in Hong Kong. That does manufacturing for it. They've got a guy there, and he tries everything. Just because he pushes the limit. So that is supported production configuration. I don't think so.
Yeah, that's the thing there with the doing stuff that's so key is that you don't know what bugs are in there.
Yeah, right. So if you scale it down to classroom size, do you still need
What happens when we need to address a great security vulnerability in these little devices that we might create and deploy in classrooms? What happens when we find something like hardware?
Yeah.
Or an SSL issue?
We say, hey,
OTA?
download this. Oh, wow. Yeah. But that's maintaining infrastructure funding. Right?
No.
Right. So we have an image. We have an image, it's versions. Go download this image. Credit card, yeah, so that is sold without warranty, right? As is all open source software. Now, we do need to make it as easy as possible. So, having an upgrade path, that's crazy.
What if we could do it just like CPM minus makes things so easy to install a program? Could we make it so that there's an administrative login for a teacher who can flash files whenever update the deployment,
Yeah,
update the image?
yeah. Because I'm expecting that
John Dexter, why aren't you here to talk about Docker?
We can talk about Docker files and stuff.
yeah.
Well,
So it's not
all the separate Docker things under
it's not particularly in his wheelhouse. I think it's a shoehorn it into tiny. But anyway, yeah. Because I want him for the Homefront project too, because there's a in the cloud panel, which is going to be security hardened from Sunday. Docker will probably play into that.
The thing about the Docker files is being able to deploy multiple Docker instances. Dependencies from their layers and stuff like this that I will completely drop.
That's one use case. The other use case is microservices, where you partition you've got one database container, one web server container, and they're separate threads, and they are separate file spaces and separate RAM, and the C groups actually hard limit what they access. So from a security point of view, that's a certain use case for the containers. From the reproducibility, rack and stack, that's a profitable use case of containers. All right. So yeah, I want anyway. Off track. What I would imagine going to the Raspberry Pi route would be it would if it doesn't DHCP, like if you try to plug it into your home network and it DHCPs, they offer a web server on that interface. If not, if you just power it up and it can't find an upstream router anywhere, then it starts its own access point, which would be documented in the documentation, and then this is your admin login, and this is your student login, create your own ID, start your lesson. Really straightforward, simple stuff.
I thought it was a picture for a second. I was starting to get concerned. Keep talking for a minute because I'm going to pull up a video again. We're going to
broadcast.
Okay.
It's that our friend in London has
Pushed.
prepared.
Cool.
He prepared that for us.
Yeah. So for the for the Raspberry Pi, I'm I'm a big proponent of open source projects being consumer grade, right? Being have a good out of box experience, because I was brought up on PFSense and IPCOP, which IPCOP was manna from heaven, right? It was rainbows and a world of rain, because it had a freaking user interface, and you didn't have to understand IP tables to set the thing up. IP tables is great, and it's the tool you would use for power users, but for everybody else, man, IPCOP was great. PFSense is still pretty good, but it's not. The interface was designed like in the 80s. So the technology, totally solid. Would you expect to find it for sale anywhere? No, because it's just too plain and a little clunky, right? So if you're going to make an open source project really fly, right, you lean toward the things that did well, right? Um, and that's what I want here, is to give it that initial polish, that easy to get started, no long tail, just use it, go on to the next thing, and a little pretty. You ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Steering the conversation back towards the educational aspect.
And those specific requirements. For the folks in this who are hearing this, either now or tomorrow or down the road, we are not going to succeed if we can't get into the classrooms. And when by I mean succeed, it's not like we're trying to assimilate people. We're not going to succeed in our goal of helping people get access to these tools if we can't get into the school. Educators are going to know the requirements to get into the school. I'm going to go to the school for my children. I'm going to talk to the principal, his staff. I'm going to talk to the people that run the computer labs there and my children's students, basically anybody who I can get to answer questions. And I'm going to ask them all the way up the food chain to whoever has the answers about regulations, rules, laws, and stipulations and requirements for software to meet before it can be deployed in a public school for here in my own localities. For folks out there who want to do this and see this happen in your country, in your state, in your city, in your school, we need to gather those same requirements from you. We need to make sure that we comply with all of those and that we design something that meets those requirements. It's important to have that stuff up front as much as possible so we don't have to bolt on, shoehorn, or shave off things that we've done in order to retrofit ourselves into schools because we've implemented something that we've created something that we can't implement. We need to get inroads to the classroom. And if you are an educator, or if you have access to educators or educational institutions for children, if you are no matter what that might be, whether you are a private school, public school, church, homeschool, whatever it might be, if you're instructing children, please let us know what kind of barriers we're going to be coming up against and the things that we're going to need to know in order to deploy this stuff for you or to make it work for you. Tell us, please, and for folks who are going to be getting the message out and who are going to help be ambassadors for this project, go find out what we need. Go find out what they need in order to get this into the class. As far as educators go, this kind of a segue into a video presentation that's prepared by a guy named Andrew Solomon from London, who's an educator. And he's going to talk to us in a pre-recorded video about, what he's doing and what he might be able to contribute. And he's running something called Geek Uni. I can only assume that Uni is short for university. And it has professional education or a professional background in educating other people. So let's see he chimed in on our mailing list, said that he was interested in this and he might have something to help out, something to contribute. So let's see what he says. I'm going to switch the focus of this video feed over to the YouTube window where he is ready to talk to us. Now, can you make sure all your speakers are muted, John?
Yeah.
Speakers and mic?
Yeah.
Let me turn up my sound as well. I don't know if my mic settings are loud enough. I'm hoping that this is going to be loud enough for a rebroadcast. Folks who are watching, please tell me if this is too loud or not loud enough. Okay, we're going to go over and screen share that window. All right, he's prepared us a vertical video. Can you see my screen, John? Can you see the video?
Yep.
All right, let's do this.
Hi, I'm Andrew Solomon, and this is my first selfie. It's my 5th attempt at a selfie. It's very difficult. I used to teach like 400 students at a time. That was fine, but looking at myself, it's very confronting. I wasn't a nice student. So anyway, Tommy has asked me to tell you about Beacon, and I'm very flattered. So I was stalking your mailing list because I'm just always interested in what Perl Mongers are up to. And the one Perl per child project just sounds fantastic. So I'll tell you how I teach at Beacon, and you should tell me if you think it can be in any way helpful to your project. So what's Beacon? When I was an academic with 400 students in the classroom, I was, for the first semester, I was just completely defeated with the idea of trying to teach them Bash by talking at them and then giving them a test at the end of the semester. So after doing that once, I thought, no, the computer can do a much better job than me. So I used the box under my desk to automatically give them feedback on a whole bunch of Bash exercises I gave them. And the pass rate went from 30% to 90% in one semester. And they covered a lot more. So I was excited by that. That said, Bash is a bit dry, and the way we were teaching it at that university was a bit narrow in terms of what people need to know. So I left academia in order to become a reasonably good Perl developer, so I could teach Perl, because I thought that was worth teaching. So about a year ago, I started Geek where people can log in, create an account on my Geek Uni site. They can learn Perl using my methodology of getting lots of automated feedback from the computer. And then when they still suck, they ask me questions. But it seems to be a very rapid and effective way of learning Perl. And I have a bunch of happy clients. Some of them are individuals, some of them are companies with large Perl teams, which they try to expand. And they get people from other languages switching over to Perl using my teaching methodology. I have a few people also learning Perl as sysadmins, so they haven't got much in the way of development experience on its own. And they seem to be going okay. There are definitely challenges like references, and but yeah, I've certainly seen some interesting questions in the discussion forum, and people tend not to get totally stuck. So anyway, I'm going to set up a demo account for you people to play with, and if you'd like to ask questions or just provide me some feedback on how you think it could help your project, please let me know. Okay, bye.
And my thanks goes out to Geek Uni and our friends there. I'm grateful for the interest, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to use this down the road as a resource and kind of collaborate based on what successful educational deployments are here at Geek Uni. I'd like to, well, you know how I've said earlier, John, let's look at things that have already worked and worked well. Let's look at projects that have succeeded in terms of what we're trying to do, and let's see if we can either use that technology or do something similar. I'm checking the email, group email. I just want to make sure if we're getting any questions that we're going to be able to answer them. Thank you for adding us to your circles, Sal J. Nielsen, or Salve. I don't know how to say your name. Forgive me. But thanks for adding us. We'll add you back. Our group, we tend to meet around the Google Plus campfire on that platform. Facebook does not offer us the things that we need in terms of audiovisual collaboration like we're getting here with Hangouts. And we also feel sometimes that using Facebook slows us down in our efforts to collaborate. So I personally used to post updates to Facebook, and there was zero return on that investment, no interest whatsoever. And the Perl community, largely, you're going to find these folks on Google+. That's where a lot of people in Perl have congregated and created accounts and are sharing socially there. IRC is another core staple of the Perl community's collaboration and real-time development efforts with each other. That's really great, except for the fact that IRC is viewed negatively by a lot of system and network administrators. So we appreciate the platform that Google provides us here at Google+. And if you don't have a Google Plus account and are just watching this on YouTube, you don't need a Google Plus account. All you need is your Google ID for YouTube or your email address or whatever. Just sign up, connect, or sign in rather, connect. Add us to your circles, and you'll get notifications and updates from us. Also, we have a non-commercial mailing list, which if you go to dfw.pm, as in perlmongers.org, dfw.pm.org, there's a link there to our mailing list, which is just a low volume, non-commercial mailing list. There's no advertisements whatsoever. And it's moderated, so there's no junk that's going in. If you join that mailing list, then you'll also get announcements and updates based on our meetings and projects. I might create an independent mailing list just for OPPC, but for now, we're going to be using our local mailing list and our identity there on Google+. So we've talked about challenges that we're facing. We've talked about possible solutions. I'm a fan of some, I'm not a fan of others that have been mentioned tonight. We've talked about the need to get into schools and educational facilities. The infrastructure's there, the culture's there. And if you have ideas on how to do that, please join our mailing list and send those in, ship them in. Or you can send them directly to us by replying to the comments on this video or contacting us directly. We have a email address. An email address is dfw.perlmongers@gmail.com. And that comes to our group administrators. And you can send your suggestions in anonymously or at least privately there if you don't want to participate in the group discussion format. We are asking the community for both participation and ideas. And your participation is limited only by your time. So we thank you in advance for whatever time you can contribute. We know that time constraints are very tight, especially on people with families. But this is something that we feel is a worthy cause to march forward and worth the time investment. If Pearl is given to you, let's give Pearl to someone else. Let's give Pearl to the little people. Let's give Pearl to the little people in our lives. That's kind of what I've been thinking in a nutshell. We're an hour and a half in. We still have 30 minutes left to go in our meeting. We might close early. Let me post a link to Andrew's YouTube video. I'm copying that now. The reason why I'm doing that is because I'm not 100% confident that audio made it into our broadcast.
Nope.
All right, posting that again. That link right there is the link to Andrew Solomon's presentation. Again, I want to thank him for his willingness to contribute time and ideas. Let's give this a shot. I'm going to go ahead and let this percolate out across the world for a week or two or a month until we meet again. Hopefully, in a month, we'll be able to actually start doing things. Right now, this is a concept. This is not something that we're working on yet. We're trying to gather requirements before we jump in and start creating something, because it's a lot easier to do something right with requirements than to undo something wrong when you haven't gathered requirements and do it retrospectively. Thanks for watching. Thanks for participating. I hope to see you guys next month and hear from you on IRC, email, Google+, our mailing list. Please go ahead, reach out and touch someone here, and I'll be reaching out to you across the world and putting a lot of effort behind this initiative. I want to see it work. And I spoke about this earlier tonight. One last note before closing. I spoke about this earlier tonight to someone I work with. And the comment that I made is that if this doesn't benefit anyone but two people, my two kids, I will still consider it a success, because it will have brought something so valuable to me to someone so valuable to me. Let's give this to someone who's valuable to you too. Let's give this to our children. Let's give this to the next generation of programmers. These kids, like I said, they're not getting this programming training in schools. At least not that I know of here, at least not in our localities and society here. They're getting little video games. And I think it's much more important that they develop skills that are going to be beneficial to them down the road. Let's give them these tools. Let's give them this amazing thing that we all love and call Perl. You can call me a dreamer, idealistic, a philosopher, a crazy lunatic, maybe overly emotional. You can call me all of these things. But what it comes down to is that Perl has benefited us all. It has blessed the world. For years, you could not even compile the Linux kernel, certain features of it, without a Perl script that came with it in the source tree. Perl is important to the world. Let's make sure that it makes it into the hands of the people who are going to be running things when we're done. John, do you have any final words?
I do not.
All right.
Action plan.
Action plans. Any thoughts post meeting?
My only thought, well, hold on. Well,
Hey, you can call me names too. Yeah, I'll turn my sound off.
where I went.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, camera back on. All right. Yeah. So, just having the thought about the Raspberry Pi, the local thing this evening. I do kind of like that. I think it makes a fair amount of sense. But that's just a delivery, right? Same way delivery making for nicotine. So we still have the same problems to solve. Started off with, which is the content, curriculum, and is there a hook that we can use to keep the kids interested long enough if they go to chapter 2, right? That's it. So there's still a whole creative aspect of the project that we need lots of eyeballs to solve.
Lots of curriculum design. And I've got some really great test subjects. Kids are really excited to sit down at any computer you give them because it's got Netflix on there. But let's close the Netflix window and look at this. Oh, what is it? Oh, what do we do with it? Think about that. Let's talk about it soon. Spread the word, evangelize this idea, get it out there. Put it out there. I am of a firm conviction that this is worth our time and effort. So let's move on this. Let's mobilize. Let's make some pamphlets and spread the word around. No, seriously. Post it on your social media. Stick it on your Twitter feed if you're a tweeter. Put it on your Facebook page, in your Google Plus profile. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your kids that you want to get involved. Ask them for ideas, ask them what they like to do. Ask them what they like to see. And let's make this happen.
Save Princess Pearl.
Save Princess. Mario and Luigi save Princess Pearl. Let's get this a good thought. I think let's reconvene in a month, and by then I will have personally done some work on a centralized based example based off of what we talked about and try to play around Docker a little bit and see if I can make some containers run on a server, expose that to the internet, and maybe figure out how to set up a REPL interpreter. You know what I'm talking about? And see if we can make things like that happen. Until we meet next time, we need to do a temporary.